Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Logsden. I am a professor at WKU, and I am making this video to talk about reading versus studying, as well as passive reading versus active reading. Now on this channel, I make videos primarily to help students, but then I will make some that are also for faculty. And this video is designed kind of for both. I have taught a reading class for incoming college freshmen for over a decade now. And both through this class as well as my graduate coursework, my colleagues and I have distilled some best practices down to help students be the best studiers they can be. Now in this video, I'm not really going to talk about study strategies. You can find those on my channel, and I will post videos regularly. So if that is what you are interested in, if you want to know how to be a better student, please subscribe. If you want to know some different tips on how to teach students better, please subscribe to that as well. I certainly won't claim to know all of the answers, but I have been doing this for a while, and everything that I talk about is research based. I don't discuss or share any strategies that I testify these will work without there being some scientific research showing that they work. So let's start off by talking about passive reading versus active reading, and then how all of this plays in with studying. Most people think that passive reading is studying, and what I mean by that is the typical student, and I am putting myself in this category as well many years ago. Back when I was a freshman, my method of studying, back when I was an undergraduate, all the way through probably my first master's degree, my method of studying was to write down everything the teacher said. If I was being an especially good student, I would read the textbook, and then I would just read and read and read over and over and over. I honestly remember days, and I have notes here in my notebook that I'm using to refer to this. But if this was 1998 and I was walking to anthropology class up the hill and I knew I had a test that day, I would literally have this notebook in my hand, and I'm going to be reading my notes as I walk to class. When I get into class, I am going to put my stuff out on my desk, and I am not going to talk to anyone. I'm just going to keep reading my notes. In fact, there's kind of a thing you can tell in college, you know, when it's test day, because people aren't talking. They're all reading their notes. This passive rereading is not studying. At best, you are hoping to memorize, and that is not studying. Now, I'm not just going to say, here's what you're doing is wrong, the end. Here's what you can do instead. So, if you are only receiving the information again, whether you're reading it again or listening to it again, you're not studying. You must be retrieving the information from your head. And retrieving information, this only happens when you are producing something new. If you are not studying with a pen in hand, you're not studying. You are trying to memorize. Note-taking is a two-step process. Without refining and consolidating and then reproducing that knowledge in some way, all you did was capture that info as it came at your brain. Now, we've all been there. I have been in classes where I have tried to write verbatim, word for word, what the professor said. There have even been a few classes that were important enough, I would actually ask if I could take in a tape recorder. That's transcribing. You have to take the information as it comes to you, whether it's from a lecture, from a video, or from reading, and you then have to refine it. Take out the extraneous information. Put it in your own words. This tip is, when it comes to passive versus active reading, this is one I've actually had students argue with me about, and I have never been proven wrong. Do not listen to music, do not watch TV, certainly don't try to have a conversation while you're studying. I mean, this is gonna sound very harsh, but it's the truth. You're not special. I've had people swear they can multitask. No one can multitask. Multitasking is a myth. It cannot be done. What we have actually found with people who truly think they can multitask, they're actually just very good at switching tasks very quickly. You can only do one thing at a time. Now, the one caveat I will give to that is if you are listening to music that does not have lyrics, classical music, for instance, some kind of instrumental, that's fine. That may not take you out of the encoding process where you are trying to make neurons in your brain that will store the information you're hoping to store. By and large, you need a quiet space. And lastly, and I've already said this, but I'm gonna repeat it, when you read to learn, have a pen in hand and extract evidence that meets your purpose. Otherwise, you are just decoding. And by what I mean by that is you're getting the information down, but you're not reading it really, and you're not learning it. Okay, so basically now you're like, okay, well, what do I do? You've told me that I need to have a pen and paper in hand. So what? What does that mean? In other words, how do you read and study? And this is a 7-step process. So if you want to start practicing, pull out a sheet of paper and start taking notes right now. Treat this just like it's a lecture. I've given this lecture in front of my classroom dozens and dozens of times at this point. You can do it from a video. Now, the first step is to establish a purpose. Now, here is where it gets a little dicey sometimes. Good teaching, good pedagogy can give a student that purpose, but the truth of it is most instruction doesn't. Now, this doesn't mean an instructor or professor who doesn't give a purpose, it does not mean they're a bad teacher. It just means that they are content area experts, they are relaying this information, and they're not really telling the student, here's what you need to do with it. Students will have to do this themselves. So how do you establish a purpose by yourself? I have seen students say, well, my purpose is that I want to know this for the test. That is not good enough. You have to be specific. What is it that you want to know? If I am about to read an article about, let's say it's about the War of 1812. Well, my purpose might be, I need to be able to fully describe and know the causes and purposes and outcomes of the War of 1812. That's my purpose. My purpose might be, I need to know what this expert's perspective was on this topic. When you have your purpose set, be specific, that will guide your reading. Now, step 2, it's extracting evidence. As I hope I've already made clear, passive reading is worthless. You know what else is worthless? Highlighting and underlining. If you do that alone, you're kind of wasting your time. When you are reading, when you are taking notes, write things down in your own words. It will make such a difference. That one step alone, even if you don't do the rest, and you need to do the rest, but just that one step, putting it in your own words, will make such an impact in your retention. You will truly be surprised. Now, step 3 is to make sense. Sense means that something is readily comprehensible. Now, if what you're studying doesn't make sense, then you need to revert back to number 2, extract your evidence better, or even ask the professor for help. For instance, I have taken, the hardest class I have ever taken in my entire life was organic chemistry. I managed to finally eke out a C in that class, and I truly believe it was because the professor took pity on me. I think now that I know how to study, I could do much better in that class, but the fact remains, at the time, I didn't know how to study. I was trying to memorize, and organic chemistry is not something you can memorize. When I would read a textbook, it wouldn't make sense. I didn't at the time, but I could have taken notes out of the chapter, and it wouldn't have made sense to me. I would have needed to go to the professor and had it explained to me in depth. Now, here's the great thing about the age we live in now. If there is a topic that you're studying that you don't get, I guarantee you can go on YouTube and you can find it. We've all been on YouTube and seen videos on some weird topics. So if you want to know more about a topic than what your professor or your textbook told you, or you maybe need it explained in a new way, you can find that. That can help you make sense. Now, sense is the first part. Step 4 is the second part, and that's form meaning. Meaning is about the connections and the relevancy. So it's like, how does the information you're learning fit into the larger picture? How is it connected to the discipline that you're studying? Without sense and meaning, you won't have consolidation. Without consolidation, you're not going to remember this. You're not going to learn it. There have been plenty of times that I'm sure a student has sat in class and the professor's talking about whatever topic it is, and the student's like, yeah, I get this. This makes sense. I'm not even gonna have to study this. This is awesome. Well, just because it makes sense doesn't mean that your brain made meaning of it. You have to consolidate to store it up in here. Now, up until this point, other than writing out notes, we haven't reproduced knowledge. We've only internalized it. We haven't taken the test yet. We haven't done any homework. We haven't shown that we've learned it. So it's in, now how do we get it out? Step 5 is to integrate knowledge. I have had so many students say, next semester I'm gonna start rewriting all of my notes. And that's pretty good. You need to do more than just rewrite them. But everybody says they're gonna do it. People know they need to do this, but then they don't do it because this takes a lot of effort. I've also told students, I've had literally thousands of students to this point come to the seminars and discussions and lectures that I've given on this topic. And the majority of people won't follow this advice because it's hard work. It's difficult. I'm not offering you a magic wand that can make this easy. What I am offering you right now with this information is the ability to study more effectively. Not necessarily more easily. It may be harder. It will take more effort, but it will work. And I would actually even make the case that for some students, this extra effort will be so productive that it won't feel like the wasted effort you've been doing by rereading your notes. So, integrate knowledge after you've read, after you've listened to your lectures, after you've written all of your notes. All this information now needs to be integrated all together into one cohesive whole. This will take lots of rewriting. It will require making lots of new things. You can either do it on a notebook. One thing I might seriously recommend, especially if you're a visual person and you like color, go get a stack of like Xerox paper that comes in colors. Maybe you have one for every class. And every time you sit down to take notes, to study, pull out a sheet of, blue paper or purple paper or red paper or whatever, and get a nice dark ink pen and do a one-pager on this clean sheet of paper. It doesn't matter what your system looks like, make it work for you, but you have to make something new. A word I use a lot is one-pager. It's a one-page document of everything that I learned about this topic. So, integrate knowledge, tie it all together. Your professor will give you information that is not in the book. Your book will give you information the professor doesn't. Make a cohesive whole out of it. The sixth step is reproduce knowledge. The best way to learn something long-term is via retrieval. Now, as your neurons, as they fire, we can make new, quicker paths between them. That's learning. So everything you hear, you might have little flickers of neurons in your brain that have that information. If you can't access that neuron, if you can't retrieve that neuron, you can't retrieve that information. Now, everything in step 6, you are making a new product. Here's how it's different than part 5, where you're also making a new product. This time you're making it without prompting. No notes, no books, no hints. Sit down and see how much of what I know can I produce from my brain. Now you may think, well, how am I going to do that if I don't spend a lot of time in step 5? You might be spending a lot of time in step 5. That's the truth of it. But if you can pull that information out of your head without prompting, and I mean no prompts. Not like, oh, give me a hint, it starts with this letter. That's you're trying to find a connection by doing that. If you can do that with no prompting, you've reproduced the knowledge and you know it. This is what you're going to do on a test. So this is a skill you need to know. Now, I've been in plenty of classes, statistics classes, math classes, even sometimes some humanities classes, where the professor will say, take this note card, you can write anything you would like on it and use it on the exam. these legal cheat sheets, these legal crib sheets that professors sometimes allow, think about why they allow you to do that. They're doing it because you're not copying your notes, you're not Xeroxing your notes, you are literally pulling information from your head, and the process of making that new note card is this step. So do it. I promise you will see such a difference in how you study. You'll see an impact in your grades. Now, step 7 is share knowledge. Students often don't know when to stop studying. I've had students say, well, I'll stop studying whenever I'm done with the test. Here's the truth of it. When you know information well enough that you can teach it, you've got it. The highest level of learning is being able to teach what you have learned to someone else. I am traditionally not a fan of study groups for the simple fact that I've been in study groups and they usually turn into socialization, like a happy hour kind of thing. I'm a fan of that, but it's not studying. But the truth of it is, if you can have a study group and you can know something well enough to teach it to others, you got it, and you'll be more than fine on the test. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below. I will do my best to reply as quickly as I can. Please subscribe. I'll be doing more of these videos. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.